Today we're going to be talking about the protests across the country, about Trump's bizarre attempt to will these protests out of existence, and my interview with Beto O'Rourke, where he'll reveal some major insight into the hottest state in the 2020 race, as well as his own future plans in running for office. This is Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. I want to talk about the protests springing up across the country, and I actually wrestled a lot with how to speak about it, because on one hand, I'm white. I don't know that I need to be the spokesperson for a movement about police brutality against black people. But on the other hand, me refusing to speak out because I'm white is the very issue at the heart of this, right? There's a nationwide refusal to acknowledge something that's happening right in front of our eyes. So I ultimately decided to say something, but I'm going to do it within the framework of what I do, which is debunking bad faith talking points about these protests from the right. And I do think that everybody has a responsibility to do what they can, how they can. And not every approach is going to be the same, but I think the point here is that we have to have an approach. So if you can go out and march, you march. If you donate. If you can help organize, gather supplies, even talk to your family, whatever it is, the point here is to do something. So the talking point that's emerged from the right is that, well, we can't support rioters or looters, or that a retired police officer was killed, and why aren't we talking about that? Why is everyone on the left and the liberal media refusing to acknowledge these things? It's not because we don't think it's wrong. It's obvious that murdering a police officer is wrong. Come on. It's because doing so is just a way to reframe the conversation, to further ignore this movement. A movement born out of the fact that people refuse to acknowledge the lives of black people. Reframing the conversation away from this movement is literally what this movement is about. America doesn't have a problem caring if a police officer is killed. On the contrary, it's usually national news. But a national conversation is needed about police brutality and the indiscriminate killing of black people. That does not make national news. That doesn't make any news. And yet it happens all the time. So it's not that the left doesn't care about the death of a police officer or the death of anyone, or doesn't think that looting or burning down a store is bad. It is. That's simple. But qualifying police brutality against black people with, right, but there was looting, right, but a police officer died, that just sends the message that you're not actually willing to address the underlying issue. It's not that those things don't matter. It's that there will always be something that happened that's going to serve as an excuse for people to ignore the root of the problem. The irony being that until we stop ignoring it, it's going to continue. The fact is that we can go around in circles blaming the protesters and the cops and the looters and this person and that person, but until and unless we focus on the root of the problem, nothing is going to change. And the root of the problem is the fact that black people in this country are generally not treated like people by law enforcement. And until that changes, until there is systemic change, then this cycle will continue, and there will be protests, and protests will lead to riots, and riots are going to lead to looting. Looting is going to lead to police using excessive force, and everyone will blame everyone else and dig in their heels, and will go around in circles. And that cycle will continue, just like it has for hundreds of years. Just like Ferguson in 2014, and LA in 92, and the King assassination riots in 68, and Tulsa nearly 99 years ago to the day, May 31st, 1921. The cycle continues because the root of the problem doesn't change. And the root of the problem is a failure to acknowledge the humanity of a subset of the population. The cities change, the people change, the methods change, the weapons change, but the foundation of the fight doesn't. Okay, think about it like this. If your house is engulfed in flames, your first move isn't going to be to replace the furniture, it's going to be to put the fire out. If you get a new couch and stick it in a burning house, that shit's gonna burn too. You put the fire out first. We have to put the fire out, because until we do, nothing is gonna change. Until we do, the cycle just continues. And by the way, this is the same concept as Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. The point isn't saying Black Lives Matter is at the exclusion of anyone else. It's that our focus right now at this current point in time needs to be with the ones who are in jeopardy. Again, doesn't mean white ones don't count. It's not at the exclusion of others. It's simply an effort to include their own. I'll use the same example as before. Your house is on fire. You call the fire department, tell them to come immediately. You say your house is engulfed in flames. Drop whatever you're doing. Come help me. Could you imagine if they said, well, every house in this city matters too. We can't just focus on your house. all houses are important. Do you see the ridiculousness here? So what do? The point is to reform the system, and that's done in a few different ways. So the first is personal accountability. It's that Derek Chauvin, who knelt on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes, was charged with second-degree murder, which is the right thing to do. It's that the other 3 officers involved were charged with aiding and abetting murder, which is the right thing to do. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the video of the officers in Buffalo, New York, who knocked over a 75-year-old man who started bleeding out of his ears while the officers walked away. Those 2 officers were charged with assault, which is the right thing to do. And I just want to be clear, you shouldn't have immunity to commit crimes if you're entrusted to uphold laws protecting against those crimes. That's all. This isn't hold them to an impossible standard. This is hold them to the same standard that everyone else abides by. What else? It's reforms at police departments, and we've already begun to see it on a small scale. The city of LA cut $100 to $150 million from the LAPD budget so that funds could be reinvested into communities of color. Minneapolis has agreed to ban all chokeholds by police and require bystanding officers to intervene, which is incredible that these weren't in place before. Seattle is banning officers from using tear gas for the next 30 days, which, maybe let's not gas American citizens. Maybe we don't use a chemical warfare agent that was banned by the Geneva Convention. There's a group called Campaign Zero, which put together a campaign called 8 Can't Wait. It's 8 policies that police departments could take immediately that have been shown to save lives, and those include banning chokeholds and strangleholds, requiring exhausting all alternatives before shooting, and requiring officers to intervene and stop excessive force used by other officers and to report these incidents immediately. And you can read more about that at 8cantwait.org. Now, those reforms are at a local level. At a national level, we have the House Judiciary Committee holding a hearing this week that hopefully leads to sweeping civil rights legislation. And on top of all of that, vote. Vote because when it comes to police brutality, we have a president whose position is this.
I said, please don't be too nice. Like when you guys put somebody in the car and you're protecting their head, the way you put their hand over. Like, don't hit their head, and they've just killed somebody, don't hit their head. I said, you can take the hand away, okay?
And so until he's out of office, until the leadership, the tone at the top changes, nothing will change. So come November, vote. Now, I do want to focus on one more issue this week, and that was during a speech Trump made on the day the jobs report came out. Here's the clip.
Hopefully George is looking down right now and saying, this is a great thing that's happening for our country. This is a great day for him. It's a great day for everybody. This is a great day for everybody. This is a great, great day in terms of equality. It's really what our Constitution requires, and it's what our country is all about. I just want to finish by saying, to save the economy, we passed several pieces of critical legislation.
So what happened here is that Trump invoked George Floyd's name during a self-congratulatory speech about the unemployment rate dropping from 14.7% to 13.3%. Right. If there's one thing George Floyd would be doing, it's smiling down on America because the jobs report. I mean, holy shit. So aside from the glaring tone deafness of deciding that a press briefing touting the jobs report as propaganda would be a good time to invoke George Floyd's name, a few other things here. First off, don't look now, but Donald Trump, the king of the economy, is celebrating an unemployment rate second only to the Great Depression. I'm not saying that the goalposts have moved. Yeah, no, you know what? That's exactly what I'm saying. 13.3% unemployment, and the dude is unfurling a mission accomplished banner. Nothing shows mediocrity of Republican presidents like their ability to throw themselves parades for their own failures. Second, that it was that high to begin with is the direct result of Trump's own failed response to coronavirus. If he didn't waste 70 days from January to March, if he didn't pretend it was contained or that cases would soon be down to zero or that it would go away with the heat or whatever other bananas excuses he cooked up, if he didn't allow the virus to spread uninhibited, if he bothered to coordinate a nationwide testing and contact tracing system, if he focused more on producing PPE when we needed it, we wouldn't be in a situation where a deadly virus swept across the country completely uninhibited. we wouldn't be in a situation where no one felt safe going outside, where the economy would have to shut down for months because the same virus that Republicans pretended wasn't real went on to kill 110,000 Americans. So I just want to make sure that whatever bullshit press conference Trump holds to congratulate himself on the recovery, that we remember the recovery is only necessary because of his own incompetence. Don't forget that. But here's the part I really want to focus on, and that is Trump on a dime deciding everything's great, right? That's the narrative now. He literally said it's a great day for our country, as if anything happened. Nothing happened. Nothing's changed. Here's what happened. Trump erected a 2-mile fence around the White House and hid out in his bunker. Inspected the bunker. And then still tweeted out a bunch of racist shit. Nothing changed. Racism in America isn't gone. Police brutality hasn't stopped. All that's happened is that Trump just arbitrarily decided that everything's fine now. Because Friday, I don't know. And the reason I think that is so insane is because we've seen this exact same tactic before with coronavirus. This reality-denying, rose-colored glasses thing where the guy just paints a pretty picture that in no way resembles the real world. Just imagine having come off of a pandemic response so botched because you spent the first 70 days of the outbreak pretending everything was fine to protect the economy, and then immediately pivoting into another national crisis where you stand up at the podium and pretend everything is fine while once again touting the economy. At some point, even his supporters have to get tired of the constant gaslighting. And I get it, this whole presidency is based on marketing. Trump cooks up some idea out of thin air and then just tries to will it into existence. He's tried to will complete and total exoneration into existence. He's tried to will dangerous migrant caravans into existence. And now, because he's got an election coming up and his poll numbers are plummeting because of his handling of the protests, he's just arbitrarily decided that everything is wonderful. George Floyd is smiling. It's a great day for America. And I hereby decree that this issue is over. We can all move on because my polling is bad. He'd say it that way too. I hereby decree. Trump sounds like what a 12-year-old thinks a president sounds like after spending the day at medieval times. So I think at this point, Republicans need to decide if they're going to continue supporting someone whose only tactic is to make up whatever reality fits his re-election strategy. Because so far, with over 100,000 lives lost, with unemployment at its highest point in 80 years, with hundreds of thousands of people taking to the streets, it's really not looking like Trump's strategy is working. That's it for this episode. Thank you all for listening. Talk to you next week. You've been listening to No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, produced by Sam Graber, music by Wellesley, and recorded in Los Angeles, California. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on your preferred podcast app and check out briantylercohen.com for links to all of my other channels.